Welcome to Midlife Women.
Thank you.
Laurie
Good.
Gerber, you are the founder of Laurie Gerber Coaching Inc.
Correct.
You held several positions at Handel Group over 20 years.
True.
The Handel method is where you learn to human better uh,
Yes.
by
True.
teaching people the practical tools of dreaming, excuse busting, and action planning,
Yep.
how to build personal integrity and the art of honesty. Wow.
You looked that up because that's not my latest bio.
I know. I just wanted to know a little more about
Sure.
the Handel method because I think
Yeah.
that's really important part of your coaching.
It sure is.
It sure
Sure
is.
is. Yeah.
So you also, I just want to mention to everyone, you also appeared on the Today Show, Dr. Phil, MTV, A&E, and you have been, this is really, really important part of your resume that's going to help us understand more the online dating world. You've been a love expert for companies such as Match, Zoosk, JDate, and many more.
You got it.
Wonderful. So can you tell us a little more about the Handel method and how does that bring more understanding, enlightenment
Mm.
moving forward in our life?
Yeah, I could talk about that for hours, but suffice to say, so
In a
this,
nutshell.
yeah, it's a comprehensive coaching method that was developed at MIT and Stanford. So it was developed kind of among very bright minds. And when I'm asked, I mean, at the time it was developed, we started developing it about 20 years ago, and it was being piloted in institutes of higher learning like those places, and also in companies big and small, and also with human individuals. And I was mostly focused on human individuals because that was just my favorite community. And when I go to explain to people how the Handel method is different than other kinds of coaching or different from therapy, what I usually explain is that it is a heart, head, body method. So there are lots of spiritual things you can do to open your heart. There are lots of physical things you can do to open your body. There are lots of people who can tell you to do something and you'll do it if you think it's a good idea. But I personally had never found any modality that covered getting to the truth of what you really desire, whether that's about dating or your health or your career, the real truth underneath all of the conditioning and all of the shoulds we put on ourselves, then lining up your thinking and your planning, right? The mental part, the thoughts and the beliefs, and then lining that all up with action and holding you to account to actually do something about it. So it was a radical shift in my life to find a method like that. That not only made me feel good because I was connected to myself, but also changed my mind and also made me change my behavior indelibly. It's now 20 years later. I still have all the gains I made 20 years ago and so many more. So that's why I teach it.
Wonderful. That sounds great. And you also applied it to your own relationship, right? I mean, I read that at one time you're close to splitting up with your husband, and that this method really helped you tremendously.
I mean, it is actually, I didn't come to get help with my relationship. I didn't come to coaching. I came to coaching for a very socially acceptable reason, which was to get help with my business. But
Mm.
as my coach, Lauren Handel Zander, who created the Handel method, is just named after her family, as she does, and as I was taught to do, you look at the whole person. You don't just take one discrete area because they're all interconnected. So she asked me about I had to write about actually all 12 areas of my life. And when she saw what was going on in my relationship, she said, unless you're trying to get divorced, you have to focus on that first. You cannot work on your business. You can't even think straight. You're addicted to sugar. You're not sleeping well. You're not proud of your parenting. You're in a near divorce experience. I wouldn't start with career. And you know, I couldn't argue with that. So we did first fix what was not working in my relationship before we could move on to anything else.
So success comes from inside out in
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
You got to work on yourself first to be able to go out into the world and be successful in your relationships and business and anything.
It's the more efficient way to do it. I mean, goodness knows we try, right? If you think about it as heart, head, body in that order, like start with what's true for you and who you are, then think about it and make a plan and then act in the world. is the right order, but most of us, at least for me, certainly until I came to coaching, it was no like act, do a lot, accomplish a lot, check a lot of boxes. Who cares how you feel? As long as people think you're cool or, accomplishing something, who cares how you feel? So a lot of people do it the reverse way, which is do a lot of stuff and then worry
Fake
about
it
how,
till you make it.
yeah, fake it till you make, or just please others, right? Please others,
Exactly.
meet certain standards instead of actually asking, what is your standard? What is your truth? What is your ideal? So I think your point about it starting with inside is very much simpatico with what the Handel method would teach.
A study by Susan Brown, a sociology professor at Bowling Green State University, found that 50 plus years old are divorcing more often, calling it the Great Divorce Revolution,
Right.
meaning more people are available, right?
Yes,
So, and
exactly.
online dating has become the most common way couples in the US are meeting. But it can be a minefield.
Yes.
Wasting time on keen men who suddenly ghost you. You know, ghosting means disappearing. Catfish means fake profiles, or breadcrumbing. That's another one
You
of
have
the.
all the jargon. You have the
I
yeah.
learned them all. I learned,
Did you
unfortunately.
Google, what bad things happen in online dating over 50?
So breadcrumbing is when they lead you on. Many women shut down after bad experiences like that, reinforcing negative beliefs. What are the things women can do differently to create a more positive dating experience online?
Oh my goodness. Okay, first of all, watch my free webinar because it's an hour that answers that exact question, and I can only give you 2 minutes right now. So that is my first answer but that's the question I'm obsessed with. And I would say, well, okay, I'm gonna bullet point this. Number one, don't rush in. If you are single, do not rush in. Do not rush in until you are ready with your mindset and you have your tools and your strategy. Because if you rush in because you're lonely or because you're bored or because you think you should, it will overwhelm you. It will disenchant you. It will frustrate you. You will get ghosted. You will get breadcrumbed. You will get love bombed. You will get all of those things that you mentioned. So that is what is happening. It's a little bit akin to like if you didn't know how to play a sport, would you just start playing one of the main positions without what I call sitting on the bench and watching how the game is played? So the game has changed, especially if you have not dated in a while or you're just divorced or you lost your partner or you've just been not bothering because your life is full or you're disenchanted. Things have really changed a lot. The good news about what's changed is that there are more people and more people becoming available every single day. And not all of them are jerks. Some of them are like you, earnest, earnest, interested in finding love, looking for long-term commitment. And then there's all the rest. So being able to shop smart or vet well, however you want to language it, is so important. You cannot learn this by trial and error unless you want to be exhausted and disappointed. So I teach my clients a very specific strategy of naming and articulating what it is they're looking for so they know, not necessarily so they can go through the list with the person, but so that they know what's a yes and what's a no for a first date, second date, third date, and then how to vet their candidates based on that list of criteria that they make. And then how to move things along from online to texting to video to live dates to monogamy. So that's in a nutshell what I would suggest someone get their head around before they even dive in, because that's what makes the difference between, again, disappointing and exhausting and fun, interesting learning experience on your path to finding the last love of your life.
Right, right. From my experience, Laurie, I see a lot of people put down, what the traits they're looking for in a partner, as opposed to how you want to feel. A
Exactly.
list of the things you want to feel with someone. You want to feel safe. You want to feel loved. You want to feel sexy. You want to laugh. You want to feel entertained. The other thing also that I found is there's a lot of, communication going on, a lot of texting and a lot of emailing. Meet them fast. Meet the people as quickly as possible, as opposed to uh, creating a pen pal. Meet the person fast and see if there's, chemistry, if it's a good fit or not. Also, what I found that really helped me is to be clear about what I'm looking for from the start. Are you looking for a long-term relationship, or you're looking for a friend with benefits? Ask those questions from the people that you're connecting with. What are they looking for to make sure that you are a good fit? You don't find that out down the line. And also to stay committed, committed to the process of dating.
Okay, that's four great points. Should I comment?
Of course, please. And anything I just said, absolutely.
I mean, now I don't have to say it, but I will underline a few things that you said. Number one, when you look to see how you want to feel with the person versus the traits that you think you're looking for, what happens is I call it the route, excuse me. I call that focusing on the destination, not the route. So when we manifest or when we attract or when we dream, we are energetically calling something to us. We do not want to energetically. So, for example, if I want to go to St. Patrick's Cathedral, I'm not going to put in my GPS, take Third Avenue, right? I'm going to say, beautiful cathedral, gray, tall, stained glass windows, austere, quiet, holy, right? I'm going to talk about the destination, not the route, because the GPS, in our case with dating, that's the all the powers that be, knows better my route than I do. My little brain that I only use 10% of, that is unfortunately conditioned by my negative past experiences, is not smart enough to know all the possible routes to the destination of how I want to feel. So we focus on how we want to feel because that tunes our subconscious to that destination. And then we are not supposed to know the route. We are not supposed to figure out the route. We are supposed to take regular inspired action, which is what I train my clients to do, but we are not supposed to know the route. And furthermore, science has shown us, studies have shown us that the traits we think are the things or the attributes, money, height, race, class, skin color, hair color, eye color, they don't end up being the greatest indicators of success in relationship. Over and over again, we find that. So it is a myth, right? It is an actual myth that those traits that you think you want are going to get you what you ultimately want, which is to feel those ways that you listed in a relationship. Super great point. And I agree with you completely. 1 to 2 weeks of texting before you ask for a video chat. A video chat, I think, is very important. If the video chat goes well, you should organize a live date before that video chat is over or within 24 hours of that. And that should be within a week. So, agreed. A lot of people are lonely. A lot of people just want to have entertainment, like social media, very passive. That's not dating. Long-term versus casual, I recommend that come up in the texting phase, if not the first date. Again, why bother getting invested or getting attracted to someone who doesn't want the same thing? It's fine if you want casual. It's fine if you want long-term. Just tell the truth to each other. I recommend asking first before telling because then somebody is less likely to tell you what they think you want to hear.
Exactly. And by the way, I just want to mention that a lot of the things they say on the profile doesn't apply sometimes. So be
Correct.
careful of that. Oh, I
Correct.
saw it on your profile, so I don't have to ask that question because it says it. Things change. And those profiles are created sometimes a long time ago.
You are
Years.
so right. And I think you also want to have a preface, and this is something I train people in because this is not natural. You want to preface this by saying, "Listen, no judgment. I understand people are in different places in their experience. I'm just curious, are you casual right now? Are you casually dating? Are you seeing a lot of people? Or are you really looking for your last love of your life, your a long-term commitment? Just no judgment. I just would love to know where you're at right now," which really doesn't give away where you're at. And then hopefully they tell you honestly. They may not, but that's what we're hoping for. And then you can tell them honestly which one you're in. And then your final point about really staying committed and staying in the game, that's everything because the thing that takes people out is quitting, right? Like it is possible to find the love of your life, but it takes work. And to me, it's an honest job. It's the most important job. I know people who've been unemployed for years and they don't give up because they want to do something with their lives. And this is, in my opinion, especially over 50, the most important thing you're gonna do with your life. So if you're not willing to commit yourself to it and give yourself to it daily, both physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, then you don't deserve the result, right? Because it just isn't something like a Disney movie where it just shows up while you're sleeping.
Exactly, exactly. Absolutely, I agree. Um, is the dating imbalance for women 50 plus real, or is it a myth? Do men truly prefer younger women, or are shifting attitudes changing the game?
Yeah. I hate this when people bring up statistics to prove anything because we all know that you can use statistics to prove anything, right? And the fact that you have whatever bias you have is what should be concerning you, not the statistics themselves. Because if you have a bias and you believe men only pick younger and you believe you're at some sort of disadvantage, I'm sorry, but that is what you're going to prove to be true because that's how our subconscious works, right? Is that we unconsciously collect evidence to prove our bad theories, even if they are not true, right? Even if they're not true. But let's even say it was true, right? Let's even say it was just, God forbid, right? God forbid it's true that there's slightly more great available women than great available men. It still has nothing to do with your journey of finding your person. It just doesn't, right? That's like saying there's nothing at Bloomingdale's I might like
Right.
or that might be right for me. Like, of course that's not true, right? But if you want to go, well, I heard statistics that Bloomingdale's, people were liking Bloomingdale's less and less, and Bloomingdale's had less and less brands, that's going to keep you from going to Bloomingdale's to find your one outfit? No, of course not. So question the logic, okay? Even if it is true, it has nothing to do with your personal journey and the literally millions of potential men that could be great matches for you. You're focused on the wrong thing if you're thinking about statistics. Now, I will say this. Men who have been in sex and affection and admiration starved relationships for years or decades do tend to seek those things once they get out of that relationship. And it is more likely they will get admiration, vitality, sexiness, willingness, all of that stuff from a younger person simply because younger people are more likely to provide that. So I absolutely appreciate that you observe older men getting those things from younger women. However, what then happens after they get that out of their system and they feel loved and admired and juiced up again and sexy again is usually they want to actually do a long-term settled relationship with somebody who shares their cultural references, who understands their health concerns, who doesn't want to have sex every day, for example. Like, so I do believe that it is a normal and understandable phase, and it just doesn't necessarily bear out as the best choice for men over 50. And so they don't generally stay in that phase. And if they do, they're not the guy for you. So you dodged a bullet. Yay.
Yay. Actually, we some of us do want to have sex every day.
I love it. I'm so glad you mentioned that. But
You know,
the
and
point
we're
where
very willing to accommodate.
I mean, what that's so I mean, I have a wonderful friend. She's 55. She just married a 38-year-old. I have
Oh,
no issue, right? Like that it's to the point of don't make any assumptions about what anybody likes or what anybody should end up with. You can end up with whatever you want.
anything goes.
Yeah.
Anything goes.
That's the
Anything
trend. That's the
possible.
trend.
That's the trend. I just came back not long ago from a 2 month trip to Portugal and Spain. It was a heritage kind of voyage and journey that I did. I actually became a Portuguese citizen, but that's a whole different, story and podcast. And I met somebody there at the dog park. I took my dog with me because I was there for 2 months. So we met at a dog park. He had his dog, I had my dog. And after 2, 3 times of meeting at the dog park, he asked me out. I was the fourth date that weekend that he asked me out. Uh, I'm glad one person canceled, so I was the third date. But and he kept telling me that 6 women for every man. It's paradise. He was married for 32 years, divorced. and he's been single for 5 years. Um, should we invest time in compulsive daters or players? Or, I mean, everybody says it's okay when you meet somebody online, they're dating multiple people. It's okay. That's normal until they find someone that they really want to, spend the rest of their life, their soulmate. That's what they do. They date a lot. But, online, I found that a few times that have been, I go on and off. But, when you go back on, you see the same people that you saw, 10 years ago. And you wonder, why are they still on there? What's going on? And you speak to some men and they've been dating for 20 years, with a couple of relationships for 2 years here and there. So are we setting up ourselves for disappointment when we meet men like that?
My response is anything men like that is our superstition and our negative bias. It really depends. If you're casually dating, you should definitely date people who are casually dating and seeing lots of different people. If you are looking for your long-term serious partner, you have to determine is the person in a phase where they are purposely playing around and trying all the flavors, or is this their lifestyle? Is this their dream? Is this what they want? And I actually think if you give no judgment about that and you're not in love with someone and you're not trying to manipulate someone, you can really ask them, is this your lifestyle choice or are you actually shopping for your long-term person? That is not an offensive question. That's a very, and some people might not know. And I understand that people do sometimes say they don't know, but an I don't know is usually no, I'm not looking for my long-term partner. And I often say to my clients, there is a very clear distinction between someone who is dating for the sake of dating and companionship and sex and someone who is looking for their long-term committed partner. They actually do sound and act very differently. And if you haven't seen the distinction, right, if you haven't tried chocolate and vanilla, then you don't know. And you really should, right, try to learn the distinction. Because one guy is trying to make plans with you, is trying to move further, is trying to meet your friends, is trying to meet your family, is trying to have you meet theirs, and one is not. And I'm not, and again, I'm not making a value judgment about either one, but please don't think they're so close together because they're not. And if you're not sure, it's probably they're not looking for their long-term person, right? If you're not sure, it isn't, oh, they're probably looking for their long-term person. It's either they're not that into you or they're not looking for their long-term person. So it should be quite obvious to you if someone is looking for their long-term person and they think you might be it. If it is not obvious to you, you should abort the
You should
mission.
abort. And also, I think it's really important not to go by what they say, but by their action.
Action.
So
Right.
this person was telling me he's looking for a soulmate, yet, the actions didn't match what he was saying.
Right, right. And I think also just so we don't bring judgment to the online dating experience, sometimes people are back on the sites because they lost their partner, their partner died, or their partner left, or through no fault of their own, something that was going well stopped going well. And so that doesn't necessarily mean they're casual daters or serial daters or anything like that. It just we don't know. We really don't know what someone's story is until we make it safe enough and ask enough questions to find out what it is.
I agree. I agree. It's tough to see older men reach their 60s and 70s without financial stability.
Mm.
In a relationship, we don't want to be responsible for anyone else's financial obligations. So, how can we politely find out about someone's finances?
That's my favorite. Because I coach successful women who literally say, I mean, I don't like it when they say I don't want to be a nurse or a purse, but there is that feeling of ultimately when it boils down to how do I want to feel? I want to feel safe. I want to feel self-sufficient. I want to feel free, right? Which means in control of my own money, in control of my own finances, not siphoning it off to some other thing necessarily. So, there are a couple of beats to the conversation. Number one, this has been my experience in past relationships. There's really three beats. This has been my experience in past relationships. Usually, in my marriage, we shared our finances. We both did blah, blah, blah. I paid for these things. He paid for these things. Great. We broke up over an infidelity. Since then, I've dated in a couple different situations. And what I found was that when the man had less financial means than I did and needed me to be able to support him in certain ways or needed me to be able to pay for certain things that I was accustomed to, it ended up feeling kind of not great, not as sexy as I wish it would have felt. And it created a negative dynamic in the relationship. And that made me really want to think about what kind of what kind of financial compatibility I want to have going forward. So what's been your experience with financial compatibility in your past relationships? So you're not asking how much do you make? How much do you save? Because all of that you can lie. And all of that doesn't tell the whole picture.
So back to this gentleman from Spain,
Yeah,
which
please.
was really recent.
Yes.
Um, he has no property that he owns. He was renting an apartment, and it was 5 years that he was looking for a new one. He had to move. He has no car. He was borrowing one of his girlfriend's friends, women. He has a lot of women friends, very little male friends, a lot of women friends. And one of these women friends was lending her car because she didn't live in this area. She only vacationed in this area, and had a place there. So there were no visible assets, no visible assets at all whatsoever. And it was really, really, and I did approach and I said, what is it that you do for a living? How do you sustain yourself?
Right.
So he did mention a couple of things that he does here and there, which were kind of a little bit risky. I think aside from asking him that question, there was no other way for me to find out more in regards to his financial, except what I saw. And that turned me off completely because, here I am. He's telling me he wants to find a soulmate, but maybe a soulmate with a house, a landing pad. That's what he was looking.
And again, I am not making a value judgment about what the exchange is. For somebody, they might be happy to share their home, their car, their money in return for companionship and sex and partnership. I have no value judgment for what the exchange is that people want to make, but I do think the exchange needs to be clear, right? It would be just as wrong for any gender person to go into a relationship and not tell about a health issue or a financial, a pile of debt or, something that is what I consider a liability. So I wish we did not have to sneak around this taboo topic, right? I wish there was like a little, AI, like, like a little screen that would pop up and just show everything, right? All your liabilities, all your assets. But we don't have that, and people lie. And so the conversation with the three beats, this has been my experience. This is what I'm looking for. What's been your experience? Is a very good way to not make someone defensive and to learn more and to elicit more information. But I want to say this, you can't mess it up with the one. If this person's your soulmate, they do not mind you asking, how would you afford that? How do you make money? How do you support yourself? You told me these things, but does it work? Are you in debt? Like, you're allowed to ask that. You really, really are. My husband told me I had bad breath the first time we ever kissed, right? Like he was like, "Hey, garlic every meal? What's the deal? Let's brush our teeth." Right? Like you can't mess it up with the one. That just made me love him more. So of course you're going to want to know about each other's health, each other's children, each other's family, each other's finances, anything that you're going to combine. Your dream for your home, your dream for your travel, your health and fitness and food situation, your religion, your politics, all of those things have to be discussed. And I say in the first 3 dates, and if you're not looking to see, are we compatible in this way or not, then you are just looking for companionship or fun or sex. And that's fine, but that's not your last love of your life. That's not your soulmate.
Exactly.
That's not your
Exactly.
companion unless it matches.
Exactly. And it's back to that Handel method, also the honesty, right? To be able to ask honestly the questions, to have them answer honestly the questions, that creates a healthy relationship. And that's out of the way to move on to better enjoyment of the relationship and togetherness, you know?
And
Uh,
you go first. You tell your problems first, right? You don't need to stand up here in judgment of somebody's finances. You can go, hey, I have herpes, or hey, have a very contentious relationship with my daughter, or my mother lives with me, or I have this leg, it's a prosthetic, just so you know, right? Like,
Exactly. Or I'm dating four women right now, and until we are, steady and we're a good fit,
right.
I'm going to continue doing that. Be honest. Don't lie. Lying is horrible, right? So, you get. I went to see my grandmother. She's sick in the hospital. And all these stories of where
Right.
they were, what they were doing, instead of the truth.
Your grandmother can only die so many times.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Laurie. Dating is a journey of growth, taking small steps, being clear about our goals, and never rushing. Falling in love is always possible, no matter the age. It's about holding on to hope and never giving up. Laurie, you offer one-on-one coaching
Yes.
at lauriegerber.com. Is there
Exactly.
another way for them to reach you?
At lauriegerber.com/webinar, you will get the
Webinar.
free webinar. I recommend that if you're dating over 50. And on lauriegerber.com, you'll hear about the course, the group coaching, the private coaching. There's a blog that has tons of stuff on it. So that's really the same. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all those places, but the website's really the best place to go for the best attention.
I really, really recommend everyone to reach out to Laurie because we really need, some tips on how to do this successfully and make it a positive experience
Exactly.
and
So
not get discouraged. If you do it right the first time, I think you have better chances of getting the results that you're looking for. Thank you, Laurie.
my
God
pleasure. Thank
bless.
you.
Keep doing the good work. We need you.